Welcome to the Leading Lane podcast for real estate pros by real estate pros with your hosts, Ashley Frederick and Stephen Birch. If you're looking for an honest, authentic, and raw perspective, you found it.
Okay, so now that we're into the fourth quarter, Stephen, how do you get people to think about finishing the year strong? But I'll be honest, fourth quarter, I'm also starting to think about Q1. So kind of tell me what your thoughts are to finish the year strong.
So I think what I do is making sure that I don't want to do business planning in December or January or February, because business planning for the next year, like we're too late. We're behind the eight ball, right? So Q4, the very beginning of Q4 is typically when we start the business planning of it. And what I tell all of the people that I work with is typically Q4 for me is the most productive and most profitable quarter that we ever have. And I think the reason being is because we're lighting the fire underneath our asses now to get going for the next year. But I always get the pushback of, well, December and November, the holidays, it's always so slow, like blah, blah, blah. Nobody wants to, the best time to put your house on the market is in spring. Well, I want to turn that around real quick, because if that's what every other agent is out there telling the sellers, then that's what's going to happen, right? But if you get in front of that seller and saying, well, if everybody is putting the house on the market in spring, wouldn't you want to be putting your house up when there's less competition, and so that you get the best number for your property? And like the light bulbs just typically just go off, like, oh my God, I never thought of it that way. So I think it's just changing mindset first, of understanding that, okay, yes, we're looking at the next year, but let's not forget where we are currently. And if everybody else is slowing down because it's the slow time, this is time for you to be able to put your foot on I was about to say the brake, not the brake, the accelerator, right? And go. Like, you're going balls to the wall and let's go. And then you get that momentum going. And then, because you're already doing your plan now in October, starting in January, you have the momentum moving forward, and you don't have to stop and then refocus on, okay, now what do I do?
I don't know.
Answer your question?
All in my head that I can hear is from the windows to the walls. I don't know why. All I can think about. Anyway, so yes, it's funny that you talk about business planning in November, because at my old brokerage, we would have our meeting in March. And I was always like, well, we're almost through the first quarter.
Right. You're a fourth way through the year already.
Yes. So I think, one way I like to view like quarter four is most of us have goals. And I do like to just be like, all right, there is like 3 solid months left. Like, what could I do to finish out any of our goals that we haven't done? And you think about like transactions that you have, like what's currently on docket to close, but also, any offers that you write between, now and technically, you could be listing all the way through December 1st. You can get maybe some of those 30 days closed in there. That's a lot of business to be had yet between October and November. Like, those are a lot of listings that could still close. So if you're, maybe 5 units or 5 families away from where you want to be, super doable if you put your head down. But I think you make a good point, especially in like the Midwest. People like to say nobody sells their properties in the winter. I think January had like 17 closings, and I was like, believe that is not true.
Right.
Because everyone has life changes, and it doesn't necessarily go around with the seasons. So it could be, relocations, could be deaths, it could be family sizes. And that doesn't matter if it's spring. I like to tell people, let's beat the spring market if you can. One thing that's important right now is that rates have crept down a little bit. So anybody that was on the fence, like, now's a great time. So I think that, looking at quarter 4 is just, are there anything that you want to just get pushed out by the end of the year? Was there something that you had planned to do between January and now that you didn't do? Like for me, I was going to take a course, and I think I got halfway through the course and I'm not done yet. But in the same sense, right, we talk about that these can be slower months. So what a great opportunity if there are any stragglers out there to finish them up. So if you were going to take a ABR course or a RENE course, like are there any things that you could just button up so that they're done for 2024 and now you have new sites for 2025?
Well, and maybe this is just a me thing, but I work really well under pressure. And so I know that those things pushed off, like I don't want to bring them over into the next year. Because also, I mean, we've talked about it before in the podcast about the accountability. In our business planning retreat that we do with our entire company, like I don't want to come to the table and say, all right, guys, this is now year number 3 that I'm pulling this over that I haven't done it yet. Like, no. So I think it helps me get my shit together and let's hurry up and push through. And then typically when I get into that momentum, again, all it's doing is it's accelerating me to run into the new year. But I also think in Q4, it's super important to plan or reflect on what is it that you continuously bring over? What is that thing that you are constantly pushing? And we've talked about eating frog before, and making sure that when you do your business planning for this next year, that frog goes first, right? We want to put that frog, we want to put the ugly stuff out first so you can get it done out of the way. So then the rest of the year, yes, the rest of the quarter, rest of the month, whatever you're planning is going to be able to be knocked out. And look at those strengths. Look at the things that are getting your return of investment. What are the items that that you want to be able to do that brought you happiness and joy and the transaction, and do more of that. Stop doing the stupid shit that you don't like doing. Like it doesn't make sense that I don't like cold calling. I've never cold called in my entire career to be able to say, hey, you want to buy or sell real estate, or hey, you want to come work with me to consult and do better. Like that's not how it works. So I'm not going to put that as something that I'm going to accomplish, but I would rather do, how many more webinars can I do? How many more events can I host and have different people come, so I want to do the things that are fun and enjoyable and then bring me business, and it's a win-win at the end of the day. Like stop trying to recreate the wheel and just push forward with what your successes are and your strengths.
I do appreciate the trying to find joy, because I do think that, I don't know, I mean, the world we live in is a little negative.
Just a tad bit.
Just a tad. And I think it's overwhelming. I'll be honest. Just been like watching the TikToks of the devastation. I had to turn it off because I couldn't take like literally watching people's homes washed away, or like dogs and cats waiting for their owners on rooftops, or people just missing. And I think it's just Ben and I talked about it, like a stark reality of, I know we know I talk about it, but I mean like literally seconds. Like some of these things happened in seconds. They were unexpected. We've had a boatload of car accidents here in the last 2 weeks. It's been crazy. And like we all know somebody, like it was one of my girlfriend's moms that passed away last week. And I think it's just a reality of like, why are we spending so much time doing something that we hate? And I think that comes back to our wheel of like 1, 2, 3, 4. Like if it's something that needs to be done for your business, but you hate it, someone else to do it. It will still get done. Spend your time, the time that makes you happy. I think the other thing for Q4 is profit and loss statements. And
what is a profit and loss statement?
Just going to say, I know that so many people hate that word, or don't know exactly what that entails. And I'll be honest, for the longest time, like we had someone that was kind of preparing ours for us, and I looked at the bottom line, and I thought, that looks good. And then it was through working with you that we kind of tore apart our profit and loss statement and found some areas for some growth, and found some areas for some cuts. So we have a meeting today, so I was looking at them and I was like, oh, spent a little bit more there than I thought we were going to. But being aware of those, and then if we can make, which another thing people really hate, but I like to try to have a little bit of a budget. So like, what did we spend last year in marketing? Do we need to spend that much in marketing? Can we allocate that somewhere else? So I think Q4 is a really good opportunity to look at what you've done this year, what worked well, what didn't work well, what can you implement for 2024?
Right. And, profit and loss is something that I remember going to a training one time, and was asked, how often do you look at your profit and loss? And I was like, never. I mean, I was very early on in just in the supervising broker role. And Imran Plotty, he was like, well, how the hell are you running a business if you don't know where your money is at? I was like, noted. Well, he made it a little tad bit aggressive with me on entire training and
Yeah.
asking me like all these different numbers, like, and just kind of drilling me. And like, it's probably deer in headlights. Like, holy shit, like, I had no idea. And I made it a point from that. Like, I'm not going to allow Pilates. I think we should tag him in this shit.
Yeah.
To be able to call me
We
out
should
in
have
a
him come on
training.
so we can talk about it.
Yeah, we should. Call me out in the training and ask me these questions. But I'm so thankful that he did, because I already was a numbers person. Like, I'm already going to do it, spreadsheets and everything. But I just wasn't focused on the right numbers. I wasn't focused, and because I didn't know either. Because there's so many different opportunities that you can look at this of, yes, profit and loss, and but my favorite is your fallout rate. What is your fallout rate? And what is the number of contracts you actually wrote, like truly wrote, and then what are out of those numbers, what actually closed, and then the difference in the percentage, that's your fallout rate. So imagine if you were able to save 10% or 15% or whatever your number is, and what that would do right there without having to increase your production. That's just saving your production and educating yourself on there. But going back to like the profit and loss, like, you can only cut so many expenses to run a business, and you can only focus on cutting for so long. There has to be a time that you take your vision and your focus, and from just cut into, okay, how can I grow? And there's so much more opportunity when you change and start not being so. I still think you need a budget, don't get me wrong, but I don't think you need to be so hyper conscious of how I can cut, and be so much more open to, there's all this unlimited potential and opportunity of income if I were to expand my horizon of view. And I think that was a game changer for me as well. I still obviously had to know where I was at, develop that budget, but then started analyzing the ROI, return of investment of, when I'm spending X amount of dollars on marketing, how much for that line specifically, not lumped together, but how much did that line of expense return me?
Right.
And once you can start analyzing that, and you can see your huge, like, what is providing you the ROI, and then you're able to then pair that with those things of joy and the happiness of events or whatever it's going to be. Like, right there, you start multiplying, and you can see that's the number you need to focus on. And maybe it's not cutting expenses out of that line. Maybe it's spending more because you already have the formula of growth of what it's going to anticipate for a forecast that you're going to be able to pull back in for additional income.
Well, and I think too, like, does that number make sense somewhere else, right? So like if you're spending like $20,000 on marketing, like would it make sense to spend $5,000 instead of that on client appreciation, right? Because there's a good portion of repeat clients and referral business, right? So it's a matter of just having an idea, I think, of what you're spending. I think, I remember that we met with a couple and literally just asked to look at their profit and losses. And just by looking at their profit and losses, we had suggestions for them. So I think that that's a great opportunity. But I also think you have to, which you were very, upfront with us, is, how long could you run your business on this, right? So like, let's say you had a really crappy market tanks, right? Like how long, like what do you need in your reserves? I think that was a really big eye opener for us to know exactly like, this is what we should have in there at all times. And it made it a lot easier for us to make decisions moving forward. Can I buy a building? Can I do this fundraiser that might cost X amount of money? Like if I didn't really know what I was operating at or what I needed for 3 months to, pay all the bills, I don't think that you can make the same decisions without having that information. But even before we had that information too, we had to make the decision of hiring Stephen, and like money was tight. Like, should we, shouldn't we? But right at the end of the day, like we knew we had to make a change, and sometimes you have to spend money to make money. And it's the best investment we had made to get us to where we are today.
Right. And it's, let me tell you, it's tough. Like to show somebody your profit and loss, completely not HR appropriate. But like, it's like you're literally like exposing yourself like for the first time to this person, right? Like you're looking up the skirt, whatever you want to call it, like, and you have to be able to be open to have that conversation. I've went into conversations with clients that have spent a lot of money with me, and I said, okay, cool, now it's profit and loss. And they're like, oh, no, but we're going to have to, we don't want to do that. Well, because they have to be vulnerable. These are real hard facts. And I think that's the eye opener of, numbers don't lie. And those numbers are going to be traceable, and they're going to go back, and you can identify. And typically people know that they're the reason why they're in this position, whatever it is, right? Good, ugly. And so I think that it's making sure that you're working, if you're going to go that direction, making sure that you are going to work with somebody that is coming into this place of want to help, and you are not shoulding all over them, right? Like you're not telling them you should have done this, you should have done that, right? Instead of giving them a different perspective, being able to say, hey, have you thought about this? Like, let's talk this through, and maybe I'm not understanding. And I think typically in those open, vulnerable conversations, as hard as they are, there's a lot of light bulbs that go off instantly, and you can see a lot of areas of opportunity very quickly that you can change. And these changes do not have to be drastic. I do not like working with clients and saying, all right, we're going to go and we're going to recruit 150, new agents, and we're going to go and we're going to do this, like all these big buzzwords. No, let's first look at the foundation that you're working with. And if we were to add 2 or 3, different variables to this formula and just increasing, what if we were just to increase your agent's productivity by 2 units per year? What would that look like? And then if we were to be able to increase by 10% year over year for the next 5 years, where would we be at by just highly focusing on training? It's small things. It's the compound effect. And it's small and it's consistent, but then it's coming up with a plan to implement and make sure that everybody's on the same page.
Sure. So as far as like, those are all great things for quarter 4. So for Q1, you do some business planning with your agents in November, correct? Like where you do like a couple days.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So really it's going through and having them do an analysis on where are they at? Where did they get their numbers? Where did they get their current transactions? What is going well? What is not going well for them? And I really used to hyper focus on just numbers, and I didn't really provide a true implementation plan. I kind of said, okay, you know this and go. Well, I think that kind of leaves people at this like stagnant of, oh, I just had this nice little chin check and I'm not loving where I'm at, but I don't know how to get there. And so now what we do is we come up with like a true plan of the next 12 months. We understand life is going to happen. Life is forever changing. So we know it's not going to be 100% to the point. But if I were to do all of these different items and, if I were to implement following up with my clients and doing 2 customer appreciation events instead of just 1, if I were to do this, like when are you going to do that? And get down to the very specific and being able to visualize your entire year when you are doing all of these different events. And then now let's map it out. How do we make that work so that it's bite-sized pieces that we're not saying, oh shit, next week is a client appreciation event and you're hurrying up and running and spending all this money and then you're forgetting everything else. Like you actually have a plan that if I start 3 months in advance and I work up to how I'm actually going to implement this, and I put it into a system of technology of reminding me or telling me, hey, I need to start this, and leaning into the plan, you're able to make it to where it's not overwhelming. It's not something that you have to, again, change entire focus. It's you're mastering it and then you're moving on to the next. You're mastering it and moving on to the next constantly. But now you have a written out plan. And when you have that in black and white, you can identify where did I mess up a little bit, or how can I improve this next time versus continuing in this vicious cycle. Again, going back to that self-reflection. So maybe next time you start 2 weeks before than, what you initially thought you needed to, or whatever it's going to be.
Do you also do any like self-reflection as far as the company as a whole from the agents?
Yeah. So we typically do a one-on-one. Um, we do one-on-one, and that's more like a grade of broker. Like agents think it's all about them, but really we want to see where we're at. But there's different activities that we do, like a SWOT analysis as a group. Uh, we want feedback from people, and it's funny. We did a sales meeting yesterday, and somebody made a joke like, "Do we need a motion as a group?" Well, no. At the end of the day, it's still my choice. Like Ryan's choice, right? But I think it's so important to have that open communication and being vulnerable and allowing them to provide us feedback of what they need help with or what we can do better or what we need to stop doing, so that we then know, based off of their plans, our plans as a company, we're all aligning. And I think the other thing that that we do is we take their goals. And so we don't dictate like you have to meet that, you have to sell 50 units. Like this is your quota for the year, right? We say, what do you want to be able to make? Like, how can we help support that? And then whatever that number is, we pull it on top and like collect everything together. And then now that number collectively, based off of everybody else's annual business planning, is now our company goal, so that we can all work together. So it's a funnel and planning versus a funnel down and dictating and directing people their quotas.
We actually do that on a monthly basis. So we have a yearly goal chart that we work with too, but we actually do monthly goals. So
That's a great idea.
We go around every Tuesday, like before the new month, and you'll just go like, all right, how many listings and how many offers? So it's a company goal for the month of 20 offers and 20 listings. And maybe Noah said it was going to be like 1 and 1, and Celeste thought 2 and 2. Well, maybe at the end of the day, like 1 does 2 and 1 does 3 and right now, but we still got at the end. So then typically when we meet goals, then we'll have like a a pizza day or whatnot, because it was a group effort. It wasn't just one agent that was doing something.
That's awesome. And something else that I love in your office is you have that big acrylic board, to be able to fill out, like just color in the different houses. So as you go through.
Awesome acrylic board that has houses on it. And then every Tuesday, if you closed a property the week before, you get to color in the house. So I think it's just, it creates some excitement. It also creates I think agents want to get up there and they fill them in differently. So I think there are creative ways to, help people feel involved and get a little bit more motivated.
And those are specifically sold, correct, on that acrylic board? I wonder, I think like listings are huge for me. Like if that were something to be able to break out, because to me, I think if you get the listing, if you win the listings, you control the market. So the more that you can be the listing dominant in your marketplace,
I have an open wall, so
I like that. As I'm taking notes, like these are things I'm sending over to Ryan and to Kim to be able to start implementing. I think that'd be great for our new year, because we don't have a visual board anymore.
I walk by, everyone walks by it every single day. And even I think it's cool when you have clients that come in and then they'll be like, ooh, what is this all about? Or they'll be like, oh my gosh, you've sold this many houses, or whatnot. So it's a good conversation piece too.
Yeah. And it's celebrating success, right? And it's a group effort. And I think that's more importantly what it is. We're here again, lifting everybody up. We want to cheer everybody on. There's room for everyone to make whatever they want to be able to make. It's just being able to make sure that they're utilizing the support and the everything that is involved from the brokerage level to push each other out there. So I love that.
Oh.
Cool. Well, thank you for listening in today, guys. As always, if you have any other suggestions, if you're looking to be a guest on our podcast, please reach out to us and share, and subscribe. And we'll listen to you next time. We'll talk to you next time.
If you've enjoyed today's episode, please like, subscribe, and share with others. Stay connected for more genuine insights and strategies to boost your real estate career on Facebook or check out our website. We'll see you next time.